Yo, this is the Italian style Rocky Balboa, and I got a bat or something, right? Are you gonna bite me, bat? I got bit by a bat.
Yep.
Are you a blood-sucking bat?
Yep.
So I should call you blood-sucking bat?
No.
Hey, yo, blood-sucking bat!
No, God.
Former child star, MJ knew him well. Hear him sing, watch him dance, he'll put you under his spell. Behind the scenes, Uncle John, all buddy time with his kids. Everybody around the world, tell what time it is. It's time, it's time, it's Rick. Jump back, kiss myself. It's time, it's time, it's Rick. What time is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Welcome back, everybody. I am Rick Siegel. This is my channel, and this is another exciting segment called This Bird's Eye View. I am the bird. This is my eye, and I'm going to give you my view on the motion picture that changed my life forever. Rocky. For those of you who don't know and are new to the channel, welcome. I'm Rick Siegel. Subscribe, click like, comment, hang around. And I used to be Little Ricky on the Partridge Family. I mention that because I was an actor at the age of 4. I was technically a professional actor with a Screen Actors Guild card, but I didn't fall in love with the art form and understand it was an art form until I saw this film. I remember when Rocky came out, I was visiting my dad, and I say visiting because my mom and dad divorced when I was 7, and I would go visit my dad on every other weekend, and I wanted to go to a movie, and there were lists of the films that were coming out in the newspaper at the time. That's where you found out where the movies were playing, and the big movies had big photographs and pictures on there, and you would open it up and point to it, and I don't remember what movie was out, but Rocky didn't have a big picture on it anywhere. And my dad pointed out, hey, let's go see this movie, Rocky. I bet it's about Rocky Marciano. If you don't know who Rocky Marciano was, he was one of the greatest heavyweight champs of all time. And I said, Dad, you want to go see this movie? Who is Sylvester Stallone? And my dad knew he had been in The Lords of Flatbush. And if you don't know what The Lords of Flatbush is, it's the first film that Sylvester Stallone was ever in, and he had a very small role in it. And I said to my dad, I remember saying this to him, Dad, Sylvester Stallone, who is that? This is gonna be awful. He went out, we went and saw it, and I remember when it was over, I vividly recall leaving the theater and walking up the aisle, and there was red, deep burgundy red carpeting on the floor. I remember walking up and turning back and looking at the screen as the credits rolled and thinking to myself, what did I just watch? And I just revisited the film after many years, watching it with Indrani, who had never seen it. And I highly encourage you, after you've seen Rocky, to see most of the Rocky series, not all. Sylvester Stallone himself will tell you to avoid Rocky V completely. It's one of the worst movies ever. It's awful. But Rocky 1 and 2 basically feel like the same film. I consider them to be very much the same film. Oh, poo! I consider them to be the same film in the same way I consider Godfather 1 and 2 to be the same film, Gangs of Wasseypur 1 and 2 are the same film. And it's a beautiful story about how Sylvester Stallone got this film made, and it's a Cinderella story because nobody wanted to make this film with him as the lead because nobody knew who he was. He had done a supporting role, not even a supporting role, in this little film called The Lords of Flatbush. And some studios said, we'll pay you for the screenplay and offered him a sizable amount of money during the day in the 1970s that he turned down. And at the time when he wrote Rocky, he was dirt poor. He talks about how when he wrote it, he didn't have electricity in his apartment in New York and was writing it by candlelight and wrote it in what he described as a fever pitch, just he couldn't stop writing for days on end. But he needed money, but he so loved this project that he didn't want to give it up. And he had several offers for people that said, we'll do it, and we want a big name. We want somebody like Charles Bronson or Kirk Douglas, who were some of the big movie stars at the time. And he said, no, if we do this, I got to play Rocky. And lots of places turned him down until one day, I think it was Irwin Winkler's office. It was either Irwin Winkler or Robert Chardoff, because they were the producers of Rocky. And Stallone went into audition for a completely different thing. He was there as an actor, and this is a story Stallone talks about all the time, about following your gut. And he went in for this audition for a completely unrelated thing. And let's assume it was Irwin Winkler. I don't remember of the two if it was him or Robert Chardoff. He finished his audition, and as he's leaving the room, the thought goes through his mind, tell him about Rocky. And his instincts, everything inside of him were saying, don't do that. That is a completely inappropriate thing to do. You came to read for a character in this thing. Don't use this as an opportunity to try to pitch your project. You might piss them off. But he got to the door and he trusted his gut, and he turned around and he said, you know, I've got the screenplay I wrote called Rocky about a down-and-out fighter. Could I drop it by and you take a look at it and tell me what you think? And Irwin Winkler or Robert Chardoff said, absolutely, go right ahead. And the rest is history, because those guys were the ones who not only did the film, they told Stallone he could be the lead. And that motion picture went on to win the Oscar for Best Picture, and Stallone was nominated for Best Actor, and the rest is history. And Stallone to this day has said, if it wasn't for that moment, he's always thought to himself, what if I hadn't listened to my gut? What if I had walked out of that room and not turned around and said, would you like to read this script? Would Rocky have ever been done? And everything in his career came because of Rocky after that. And if you've never seen this film, I really encourage you to see it. It is about as good as movie making can get, and it has an absolutely wonderful cast. Talia Shire plays Adrian. If you've seen the Godfather films, she's in that. She is perfectly cast as Adrian in the film. Burt Young plays Paulie, who is so closely resembling in every way my Grandpa Gallo. It is scary. And then an absolutely legendary actor named Burgess Meredith, who plays Mickey. One of the best actors in TV and film at the time, who was born to play this role. And then the incomparable Carl Weathers, who was perfect as Apollo Creed. It is a really beautiful film. It's an inspiring movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers away here in case you haven't seen it. But the writing, the acting, the directing, the score by Bill Conti is, to this day, legendary. The Rocky theme song that came out of that, and the training montages. This was the first film to include a training montage. So whenever you see a training montage in a film like Bog Milka Bog, where he's training, that was done first in Rocky, to my knowledge. Now, you guys have been known to send me snippets of information that let me know, wait a minute, Rick, that was done in India first, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But I can't tell you how much I love this movie. This movie means so much to me. And you're not watching Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burgess Meredith, Burt Young, and Carl Weathers. You're watching Rocky Balboa, Adrian, Paulie, Mickey, and Apollo Creed. You feel like these are real people, and this is a real story. And it's one of the best acting performances of Sylvester Stallone, as is Rocky II. So I would really lump both Rocky I and Rocky II together. They really feel like one motion picture. And there's a lot of other films by Stallone I would recommend, a lot I wouldn't recommend. I don't know if you knew this about Sylvester Stallone, but for years he has wanted to do a film about a hero of his, which is Edgar Allan Poe. And the only reason he never did it was because he said, do you think people are going to accept me as Edgar Allan Poe? So hats off to Sly for knowing his market. But he's one of the most, in my opinion, he's one of the most underrated talents, and has made some choices, sadly for me, where he's gone the action route when I would have preferred to have gone more in the dramatic route. Because in this film and in Rocky II, as well as his work he did in First Blood, the first Rambo film, he has a really beautiful monologue sequence toward the end of First Blood. That's some of my favorite work that I've ever seen Stallone do. And he has, for me, in addition to the acting inspiration, I've mentioned before on the channel and on here that he's the reason I became so passionate about physical fitness. It's the combination of what I saw my mom do as an aerobics instructor growing up. My mom was both an aerobics instructor and a competitive disco dancer. And my dad was a healthy man as well, as you guys have heard me talk about. He was an athlete who played incredibly well the game of baseball. And so fitness for me was a big deal that Stallone took to a completely new level for me at right about the time a young man is looking for a male role model. When I was about 14, 15 is when the Rambo films came out, and that's when Sly started to go crazy. You see a massive transformation in his body from Rocky II to Rocky III. It's insane, the transformation he went through. But I digress. Put your comments in here about Rocky. If you haven't seen it, please do. It is, for me, one of the greatest films ever made, and one of my favorite films of all time because of the deep impact it had on me and made me want to be an actor. Seeing those characters up on that screen and thinking and knowing at 7 years old, those were people pretending to be other people, and I believed every single moment, I want to create characters like that. I want to portray characters like that. It was so inspiring and still is to this day. I hope it is for you too. Thanks again for tuning in to This Bird's Eye View and being here on my channel. More to come on this, as well as afterthoughts. And yes, I haven't forgotten about bedtime stories. There's some other segments coming up where I'll bring back Cousin Tony, for those of you who know who he was and his only appearance he's made on the channel. And again, thank you for subscribing, thank you for liking, thank you for commenting. A little silly song's about to happen where you can click on the Patreon link that'll appear, and guess what, stupid babies? Yep, the link to Patreon is in the description of this video. I didn't forget this time. See you all later, and again, to all of you beautiful stupid babies who are in the Bay of Bengal, from the entire region in India and Bangladesh, and especially you beautiful stupid babies in my home away from home, Calcutta, with my Indrani. Be safe. I believe the worst has gone past you guys now, and I love you. Take care, and as always, stay frickin' stupid.
If you like this video and want some more, subscribe right now and you'll adore the time you spend with me and your extended family. And if generosity turns you on, just click that link to Patreon and give until your money's gone and no one else will be.
Rick Siegel, an institution of silliness for everyone but Corbin's mom.